I read Manic Pixie EGirl by Nate Lemke so that you don't have to. People warned me not to read this, and I should have listened. I regret everything about it. So there are three different storylines in this book. One is about a lonely loser who searches for women on Reddit. And then there is an organization that has worked for the government in making bad things happen to put America on the right path. And then there is a storyline that follows the tarot cards. And it all connects because apparently we are living on the wrong timeline and we should be getting to the right timeline. And to get us to the right timeline, we are going to have a masturbation meditation all together. What I would like to do is I would like to yeet myself into a timeline where I didn't read this book. Don't remember when Nate Lemke first appeared onto TikTok. His way of marketing his book was he was going to read one book a day by a woman every day until his book published. And it was as though he never knew that women could write books. And he had never read a book by a woman before. Back on his bookshelf, most of those books were written by men. Frankly, after reading this book, that is not surprising at all. The women of Booktok canceled him because we all felt that he was a misogynist. He went from almost 10,000 followers to maybe 6,000 or 7,000. Now he is back and he has a new strategy and almost 25,000 followers, mostly women. And he's positioned himself as the most canceled book on TikTok. People are canceling this book because it talks about sex. I want to be very clear that this is a sex positive page. And the problems that I have with this book are not about sex. They are the way that this man approaches women and sex. Because quite frankly, this book reads like an instruction manual to incels. I read the back cover of the book that I received. I knew that it was not the same back that it was previously. And shout out to Alexis on Goodreads because she actually had a copy of what the first version said. Manic Pixie EGirl is a deep dive in the damaging world of hypersexualized online environments. With honesty, wit, and compassion, Lemke explores the crippling effects of growing up with unrestricted internet access. Much like the iconic Manic Pixie Dream Girl trope itself, this narrative unveils a disconcerting truth. Countless men raised on the internet find themselves trapped in a paradigm where they perceive women as nothing more than idealized objects of desire, tragically overlooking their fundamental humanity. Much like the author, as evidenced in the book. The story centers around the troubled and perverse mind of Alden Goodnight, an internet-addicted loner as he struggles to overcome the symptoms of a debilitating mental illness. With the help of a well-intentioned, if slightly misguided therapist, he embarks on a chaotic and ultimately transformative journey to embrace all of his addictions in an effort to rid himself of them forever. Now, let me read the new back cover. The most canceled book on TikTok, Manic Pixie EGirl, is a prophetic chronicle of cults, conspiracies, and the darkest corners of the internet. Alden Goodnight has sworn off women altogether, but when a provocative young content creator moves into the apartment above him, his resolve to stay celibate is put to the test. Claiming to be the new messiah of the 21st century, the audacious and irresistible Abby Cadabra is anything but your typical girl next door. Enigmatic, ambitious, and a bit naive, she is determined to become the most esoteric e-girl the internet has ever seen. Alden soon becomes captivated by her reverent charm. An unlikely pair set out to create a salacious social media empire, even if it means starting an apocalyptic sex cult in the process. Most recent promotion of his book is he's talking about tarot. He is talking about 1111 and the significance of numerology. And he is talking about a group meditation that's going to happen on August 8th, 2024. He's actually going to host a TikTok live on this date so we can see if we can jump timelines. But what does jumping timelines even mean? So we meet our main character, Alden. He is living with his ex-girlfriend. His ex-girlfriend is basically saying, look, you're a loser. You need to get a job. You need to do this. You need to do that. He is so sick of it. He is in therapy. And his therapist tells him basically like, hey, you need to go live life. So during a guided masturbation, he imagines this little pixie. And then it turns out that this pixie is real and she moved in upstairs. And so he meets her not in person, but on a Reddit chat board. The Reddit is called Gone Wild, and it's nothing but people sharing their nudes to meet other people. So I was like, surely this page on Reddit cannot exist. So I looked it up. And it exists. And it asked me if I was 18 years of age. And I am. So I clicked on it. And I should not have clicked on it, my God. Because it was nothing but boobies in my face. And boobies are fine, but I didn't know that that was what I was actually going to get and that this page was real. Because now everything I can see in the book, I am no longer associating it with the character. I'm associating it with the author. Because I fully believe that this just didn't come to him as fiction. Because look at some of these winning sentences. There was absolutely no point in hanging out with other men. Just spend all your time with women and eventually you'll get laid. And if you want to take the sex out of it and just focus solely on the writing, allow me to read you another sentence. Her panties are teal, cyan, turquoise blue, the color you'd get if iPhone messages and Android messages had a baby. There's this whole part in the book where he's talking about how you get women to gradually move to send you pictures and then do more than send pictures. So I read this as a guidebook for men who can't get any ever. He says, girls like it when guys are dirty. Most are too afraid to step into that side of themselves. Sure, you might get that occasional girl who freaks out and threatens to report your account. And she'll get a thrill of telling you off and how you invaded her space. But at the end of the day, she's posting nudes on Reddit. She's going to get dirty messages. Ew. When you spend your whole life trying to please women, it comes as quite a shock to find out that the only way to get their attention, at least on this depraved corner of the web, is by being a total creep. He then goes on to say, I made a spreadsheet and tested the effectiveness of various opening lines. I don't doubt that he has really done that. I don't doubt it. He uses a lot of leftist language, but then it hits you with these weird QAnon conspiracies like 9/11 was an inside job. And the reason that that date was chosen specifically is because when Americans need help, they call 911. Okay, so how does the Reddit perv timeline relate to the timelines about the time jumping and the tarot? So the time jumping is all about these conspiracies and that we are living on the wrong timeline, the timeline when 9/11 didn't happen. In the tarot section, the high priestess has been kidnapped and her parents, the emperor and empress, are looking for her. And this idiot, Anon, just falls out of the sky, can't remember anything that has ever happened to him, can't even remember his name. And so he is tasked by the various other tarot cards to go on this journey and find the high priestess, who is rumored to just have run away because she was a sex worker. So this Anon character doesn't have a shadow. So he's the man without a shadow, and it has been prophesized that he is going to bring the light back to the place because the light has been taken away. And the high priestess, her name means light. Well, it turns out by some stupid magic that the emperor did that he is actually her shadow. And what better to expose this dirty truth to the citizens than to have sex on stage in front of everybody, including her parents. Meanwhile, on the dirty Reddit timeline, he meets the neighbor girl upstairs. They start screwing around. She just wants him to take pictures of her that she can post on Reddit, and then she becomes very popular on Reddit, so popular that she starts her own cult. The cult is EGirl. It stands for Esoteric Guild of Interdimensional Reincarnating Liberated Sluts. And he becomes the bishop to this cult. And I am just going to read to you what the duties of the bishop are. As bishop of the guild, Alden's represents the purifying power of the universe. I raise an eyebrow at the mention of my new title. Abby gives me a wink. Your old self will dissolve and new self will rise out of it like a phoenix from the ashes. A phoenix from the ashes, from receiving the... Here's the thing for me. It's not just that he wants to shame and degrade women, but it's something about the women in this book giving him permission to do so. Abby Cadabra and the cult. He's got his therapist who tells him to go out and fuck bitches. The only one who is telling him that he needs to get it together is his ex, who he's trying to paint as a monster. She's the only person in this book who makes any damn sense. Now, there's one scene in this book that I can't read to you because it is too graphic, but as we go further and further into the cult's activities, they want to do some things for Reddit with some vegetables, and there are just no more vegetables left. So they have to go back to his apartment. Now, keep in mind, he's still living with his ex. So the main character and the cult leader and her cult, some women of the cult, go back to his apartment. They have got one girl on the countertop and they've got all of these vegetables, and then in walks the ex. And how dare she be offended, and how dare she call the police? How dare she make anyone feel shame? There are three main scenes in this book that upset me. The first one is part of the main character's issues is that his father saw him messing around with a girl when they were both younger and labeled him a pervert, and so he's felt shame his whole life. And I'm going to read a couple of passages, and I'm going to trigger warning for these passages because it goes into a little bit more detail than what I just mentioned, and it involves people under the age of 18. Some scenes in here that I don't even think I can get away with reading that talk about second grade and talk about high school. And I find this deeply, deeply concerning because why in the hell was this included in this book? Honestly, why was any of, like, why is this a book? So the whole plan to jump to the right timeline is on August 8th, they are going to do a live masturbation meditation, and together that manifestation is going to bring them all to the correct timeline. Or have you heard that before? You've heard it in Nate's marketing where he is going to host a TikTok live on August 8th. So what is he expecting to happen in this live? When he talks about his ex, the main character says, I see right through her judgment as the projection of her own repressed desire to let go. I don't need to live up to some unachievable ideal of perfection. I'm healed. Usually when I rate books 1 or 2 stars, it's because the writing is bad. The writing didn't do it for me. The story didn't do it for me. It just wasn't an enjoyable good time. I don't think this book even deserves a star. I think this book is just the author trying to work out his issues with shame and trying to work out his own dark, twisted fantasies. In other words, I'm finding it very difficult to separate the author from any of the characters. Imagine my dismay when I go to look at his comment sections and there are women who have read this book and think it's life-changing. I don't find the author particularly charismatic. In fact, I find him reprehensible, but he's a white man with a mustache on the internet. I think the tarot story in this book could have been written by a 6th grader who was given instruction by a teacher to use the tarot as inspiration for a story, and he wanted to show off for his friends. This book has no merit whatsoever. I've never walked away from a book feeling so disgusted, and I read a lot of horror and I read a lot of grotesque things, but I've never been so disgusted and so actually concerned. Recommendation for the author is you don't need to publish this work. You need to sit down with a therapist daily for a prolonged period. I regret every moment I spent reading this book.